sharing appropriate information as true partners.
Jason Johnson is an author and a professor at Hiram College in the U.S. state of Ohio and a regular contributor to Al Jazeera. He joins us from the U.S. city of Atlanta. Jason, good to have you on the show again. Tell me something. To make this work, it's all about sharing, isn't it? And that's not something that private firms and governments are really very good at. Is this going to work?
Well, no, it's hard to call it sharing when the president's asking you. It's more like whether or not you're willing to go along with what the president is going to firmly suggest and then bring policy to bear upon. This plan won't really work unless Yahoo, Facebook, and a lot of other social network and search engines want to agree. But it also won't work if technology companies like Comcast and Verizon don't agree as well. So this is going to take a lot of agreement from a lot of different places.
The president was focusing a lot on the information that's gathered by social media programs, for example. But there are wider threats, aren't there, that still have to be dealt with?
Right. You know, the primary concern that the president wants to talk about is business concerns, hacking into banks, hacking into insurance companies, hacking into private corporations like we saw with the Sony hack just a couple of months ago. And so that's how the president is attempting to sell this to Google, to Yahoo, and to other search engines. But all of these companies are very, very concerned that the president of the United States, given the behavior of the U.S. government towards Edward Snowden, they're concerned that they're going to be complicit in helping the U.S. government to spy. And while that's a real concern, it's not like they don't take people's private information and sell it to outside parties too. So neither side is really on the moral high ground in this situation.
And in terms of defending the U.S. against cyber hacking, for example, there has to be a lot of information sharing between the U.S. and foreign governments as well. Now, sometimes that's going to happen under like the Five Eyes scenario that we learned about with Edward Snowden, where there's information sharing between the U.K., the U.S., Australia, and so on. There are an awful lot of governments who are not going to be prepared to open their doors to the U.S., aren't there?
Yeah, it's going to be really, really difficult. And we've seen that already in the battles against Boko Haram and the battles with ISIS. ISIS has been transferring signals through 3 or 4 different countries in order to do propaganda for their war, in order to communicate and recruit. And oftentimes the United States and Western allies have difficulty tracing them because it requires agreement through several different nations who all have different ideologies. So, you know, this is a major, major challenge. And again, if the president had more integrity on this particular issue in the minds of the technology sector in the United States, it would be easier. But even with his positions on net neutrality, he doesn't really have that integrity.
Jason, just one more question. If we're pretty much agreed that this is going to be an uphill challenge for the president and may end up being dead in the water, who was he selling this to? Why was he making this speech in the first place?
He was making the speech because he's got to lay the groundwork. The reality is the future of warfare, the future of spycraft, the future of technology in the United States is going to require some sort of middle ground between sharing technology and needs for security. So he can't back away from this issue no matter what difficulty he's going to face. And I really think that the president's goal right now is if he can sweet talk Silicon Valley into working with him, he won't have to go the legislative route, because once that happens, it encourages lawsuits and fights that aren't going to help him out long term.
Jason, always really good to have you on the show. Thank you very much indeed. Jason Johnson there.